Welcome to Raise Nation Radio, live from the Country Music Hall of Fame at the 8th Annual Raise Conference in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Dawn Lego, and I could not be more excited about this year's conference. Over the next 2 days, we'll talk to fundraising leaders about the latest and greatest from the nonprofit world. We'll explore hot-button issues, innovative ideas, and bring you all the energy from the Music City. And joining me is my fantastic co-host, Matt Bitsagai from DonorDoc.
Thanks, Don. We are so excited to be here. We can't wait to share with you some innovative fundraising strategies, some inspiring stories. Buckle up, everyone, and get ready. We are about to raise the bar together. Welcome to Raise Nation Radio.
Gong Wang of Civic Champs, welcome to the podcast. We're so excited to have you here at Raise Nation Studio. You and I first met when we were on a panel, and we were talking specifically about how you could engage volunteers more in events. And so we're interested to talk to you about volunteer engagement today. And you're here at Raise talking about how to recruit the next generation of volunteers and donors. So let me ask you the big question. How do we recruit the next generation of volunteers and donors?
No, that's a great question. I think the thing that comes to mind is there's actually a lot of misconceptions out there in terms of volunteerism. And so the last census that was done showed actually volunteerism decreasing over time. But in reality, it's actually been growing quite rapidly ever since COVID. And actually, we're at a point where we have more volunteers and interested volunteers than even pre-COVID, right? So if you look at Google search trends, Volunteer Match, our internal data, everything, it shows that volunteers kind of, I don't know, say skyrocketing, but really increasing at a great clip. Well, at the same time, of course, we all know that individual giving has been decreasing, right? And so one of the ways in terms of kind of getting a double bang for your buck, if you will, right, is actually just recruiting more of these volunteers who will naturally become donors, right?
Yeah.
And we have lots of data that shows that as well. And so that's what the session talks about is, how do you, some of those stats, right? And then why you should engage volunteers as donors as well.
Excellent.
So I think we're talking to fearless fundraisers who wear a million hats.
Yep.
We've all either been in or intersected with the nonprofit sector. They do a lot with not a lot. And folks are looking to AI and automation to sort of make pieces of their work easier, to liberate them to do other relationship-based pieces of their work.
Right.
What can automating volunteer management look like for folks?
So I think volunteer management is one of the ones that's a little bit harder to automate, right? Because it's so in person in a way that, because volunteerism, unlike donations, is very localized. Right? You don't volunteer for your national causes for the most part, right? You will volunteer for your local causes, right? Whereas giving, right, you are giving, we're just talking about the election cycle, right?
Yeah.
You're donating to a national campaign. You might be donating to Georgia, right? Because that's a swing state that really matters, right? But that's not true. People aren't driving down to Florida, right, to canvass and do door knocking, right? It's all very local. And so I think from an automation standpoint, the core tasks are going to be harder than on the donation side. So like companies like Givesy, Momentum are a couple of, our friends in the space that have really worked on the AI pieces of donations. I think on the volunteer side, certainly we look at opportunities to automate and maybe make easier the back end processes.
Yes.
Right. And so you're talking about like, I do this actually every time we do a demo oftentimes, right? It's like, write me a volunteer event description, right? And ChatGPT will right, give you the whole list, right? And that's the sound effect it gives you. And so I think those are great opportunities, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, actually, you can get ChatGPT to write you your handbook.
Yep.
Right? It might not be the best, but it's going to be more comprehensive, actually, in many ways than what you were thinking about. And I think that's where you can really leverage that technology is like it's scouring the whole internet for what everyone else is doing. And so if you have it draft something, right, you can delete the things you don't care about, right? Or maybe augment it, but it's going to be a pretty good first draft.
Yeah, giving you a starting place.
Right.
Well, and I think that that's the key, I think, in this technology lurch that we're all experiencing or perceiving we're experiencing. I think folks are looking to, great, now that can do that work for me and I can move on to this thing.
Right.
And it's actually, what does that dance look like? How do I stay in relationship to my volunteer and use this technology to give me a base to do that from? But how am I using it as a dance, right? As a piece of the whole picture, not that it's going to just take volunteer management off my plate.
Right. Yeah, and I think there are components from the donor management side that you can borrow. Like, for example, a lot of the AI tools are around writing high volume personalized solicitations, right? Well, you can do high volume personalized thank yous that talk about your specific event, your specific contributions, maybe tying into the specific impact that might have, right? And if you have AI do it, it could be just a little bit different in each of those emails, right? In a way that, doesn't seem as like, cookie cutter.
Copy paste. Yeah, exactly.
I always feel like what AI can help us do is like take the task off of our to-do list, but still give us time to be in relationship.
Yes.
So it's like, how do we get rid of the task, utilize the tools that exist and the technology that exists to help with tasking, and then really focus on the in-person, the connection, the relationship, the fun part. Yeah. Well, so I feel like we're in the middle of a big generational shift that's been happening where we're seeing younger donors that are more interested in direct impact and engagement and being in relationship to the mission and the organization. So in your presentation, you just talked about the interconnectedness of those who are engaged as a volunteer are also giving. I'm curious about, how does Civic Champs and the platform you have mobilize younger generations of volunteers and engage them both in volunteering, but also in becoming a donor?
Yeah, I would say, to the topic we were just talking about, like, we're a tool, and so we can't get rid of the core relationship piece, right? Like, you have to do that as a nonprofit, as a volunteer manager. But what we can do, right, is streamline everything else, right, around the back office, like from applications to collecting waivers, right? So we, one of the unique things we do, right, is we actually remember when the waiver expires and we'll automatically prompt volunteers to sign. So you just don't have to think about it. It's like taking that one small hat, right, and putting it on the shelf, right, and saying, okay, I don't have that hat I have to wear anymore.
Check that task off.
Right, and it's one and done, right? Like, now it's always going to be there. Like, I know it's good. Or the other thing that we do uniquely is we actually collect feedback, right, from your volunteers. And this is the other piece, right? It's like younger demographics especially are so used to slick, seamless technology that makes your life easy, right? And you're like, oh, you know what? I need to go from A to B. It's like, well, I have a gazillion options for one, but I could, on my phone, I could be like Uber, right? Like, give me a magic. It is like magic.
It is
right?
magic.
Like,
yeah.
5 minutes later, a car is waiting for you to take you to the thing, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have to wait outside like a taxi used to, right? Like, we're just so used to these seamless experiences. And one part of those experiences that we've been sort of ingrained that we're taking advantage of is that feedback component, right? After every Uber ride, after every restaurant visit, after whatever, right? It's like, how did you like it?
Yeah.
And so we ask that question, after every volunteer experience. How did you like it? Smiley faces, frowny face, happy face, but a reflection if you want to leave it. And I think that's so key to retention, right? Not just for the people that are unhappy, but also ones that are happy, right? So you can ask them for donations, potentially. Maybe you ask them to come back, right? And that's where I think that connects to that donor piece of it too, which is you're able to segment the volunteers that you could really target for a successful campaign. And of course, with our integrations now with like Little Green Light and Razor's Edge, we're talking with folks at Donor Perfect to start doing that too, right? That now where our data is also inside the donor management platforms.
Data, folks.
Right.
Data.
Yeah.
That's what you need.
And so that I think people are pretty excited about too.
It's interesting because I think that you just tapped into a neuroscience piece that maybe you didn't even know you tapped into, but that idea of the importance of belonging, the importance of connection, the importance of feeling like we have a voice in the work that we volunteer in, where we give our money. Susan Nawa is a researcher at the University of Washington that researched what moves people to give. And that sense of belonging is a huge one. And I feel like when we ask for feedback, it's a great way to like neurologically say, I have a voice here. I'm part of this, and to make that connection. I love that your tool takes that task away, but still brings people closer and connects people.
Right. And it's a relationship building tool, right? Which is like, if you give me feedback, I have an opportunity to respond to that feedback. Right. And now it's like, you really did listen to me.
Yeah.
What do you think, sort of big level, for our fearless fundraisers who are sitting there mulling this over going, oh my gosh, what's the biggest opportunity for them? How can they look at this from an opportunity standpoint for them? Either in their role or as an organization.
I mean, we're obviously a little bit biased, but I do think volunteers it's one way to fight what feels like an inevitable decline in individual giving, right? Like we've tried everything, right? For decades, actually, right? Like if you look at the numbers, if it wasn't for the fact that we have billionaires giving more and more like giant donations, right? The percentage of people giving has continued to decrease. Right?
Yeah.
That's not true on the volunteerism side, right? Especially more recently. And so I think there's an opportunity to really tap into that, right? Into that sort of affinity for your organization. Maybe build out. And the other thing I always think is interesting is every nonprofit started as 100% volunteer run.
Yes.
And at some point, many of them, or many of us, I guess, have lost track of that. And then we pigeonhole our volunteers into these like very specific niche things. And we don't trust them anymore. We don't think they can do XYZ things. But I think there's an opportunity to go back, right, to those roots of where organizations came from, provide people with more voice, more agency, so they feel more connected. And they will naturally donate, even if you did nothing else, right?
Yes.
And two, but if you did do a little bit more automated, segmented asks, I think you could really, reverse that trend.
Yeah. Well, what a great note for us to wrap up on. Thank you for joining us here at Raise Nation Studio. We're so excited to have you here at Raise. And it was nice to be able to chat with you about volunteer engagement today.
Of course.
Thanks, Gung.
Yeah, thanks.
Welcome back, Raise Nation. We are so glad that you're here and you're going to want to listen to this episode. We have Kathy Kemp here from Nucleavis. We also have Emily Newberry here from One Cause. And we recently announced a fantastic integration that's going to bring peer-to-peer to a new level by bringing that true mobile experience to life. And to tell us about it a little bit better than we can, meaning Matt and I, we actually have Suzanne Bash here from the National Ovarian Cancer Coalition. I did that right in the take, but messed it up here. Sorry about that, Suzanne. Anyway, Matt, are you excited about this? Super. Yeah, mobile experience. You're all about it, I know. Kathy, why don't you tell us about the integration?
So one of the things that's really important in today's day and age is digital first is kind of 10 years ago. We're now in a mobile first era. And so 70% of web traffic is coming from a mobile device. So not having that mobile experience is really taking away from that really maximizing participant fundraising opportunity. And so by having the One Cause Nucleavis integration, we're bringing mobile to the masses and really enable them to be, increase engagement, increase fundraising, access to native experiences from a mobile device like QR codes, SMS messaging, you name it. So it's really exciting to see some of the early results.
Now, Emily, why are you excited about it? Because I know you saw this integration opportunity, brought it right to the teams at One Cause, and we need this. And we know Emily Newberry, how she operates. And so what are you excited about when you're talking to?
I mean, certainly everything that Kathy just shared, but I think that when you look at the data that comes out, and I even referencing our own data, the Giving Experience study that One Cause produces every year. I just did a session on it at 9:30. We know that when you make things accessible and you make it easy and you reduce all the friction, people are more willing to participate, to engage, to connect with your organization and with the campaigns that you want them to support. So you really have to think about, we've said it in nonprofit space for years, like you have to meet them where they are. Where they are is on their mobile phone. We give a few examples of companies out there that do it extremely well in the 9:30 session. We talked about how Disney creates a magical experience from the first interaction, right? We talk about how easy it is to do Target pickup and mobile orders. We talk about Starbucks, how easy it is. We have to make giving as easy as that, right? We do not have consumer hats and donor hats. We are one and the same. The giving expectations have risen. Participants deserve and expect a different experience. And if we're not delivering that experience, we're not going to see the participant engagement and the donations come in as the nonprofit is expecting. So it's a must-have. It's not a nice to have anymore.
It's not a luxury anymore. It's a must-have. Well, you're all about data, right, Matt? So you must. I know a burning question that you must have. What are some stats that we can expect by integrating a mobile app into the peer-to-peer campaign?
So there's two stats that are really important. The first one is average adoption rate. So typically what you're going to be looking at is on the spectrum of type of peer-to-peer events, the average is about 20% adoption rate. But for those endurance type events, you can actually see as high as 60%. Demographic will vary based on the age range. So younger the audience, typically the higher the adoption rate. That's where your mobile users typically are. The second thing that we look at is percentage of online donations that are actually processed through the mobile app. And that'll range anywhere from 20 to 40%. So it's no longer a small piece of the pie. It's actually something quite substantial.
It is the pie.
Exactly. You can't ignore it anymore. And then one of the things that's really making that piece of the pie even larger is mobile check deposit. So a lot of folks think, oh, checks are decreasing, they're not as relevant anymore. We have some organizations that are processing millions of checks through the mobile app. Why? Because there's a lot of company
I like that number,
donations.
millions.
I have one org, no lie, $12 million a year in checks. And so it's about easiness, right? If you had a bank that you were working with and they're like, sorry, we no longer have a mobile app and you can't do mobile banking, you'd fire your bank, right? Because it's about that ease of experience. And then the last stat that I'll share is how much more is being raised by mobile users versus non-mobile users. And the average is about 4 times. And so what it really comes down to is it's easy to get to. You do facial recognition to log in, biometrics, one-click sending of messages. And so when you really are doing the math and the ROI analysis and they're raising that much more, you know that that's really where you want to invest. In all of those stats and metrics, we exclude $0 people because $0 people are going to be skewing those metrics anyway. So this is truly fundraising users compared one against mobile versus non.
Got it. Wow. So Suzanne, why did we bring this One Cause mobile app
first I want to say
Knock? Can we call it Knock? Because I might mess it up again. Okay, Knock.
If my CEO won't listen, it's good.
Okay.
No, we needed this and so excited about the partnership with both of them. And I think that from the perspective of organizations who are on the ground, boots on the ground doing the work, the mobile app helps with everything from communication, your milestones. Like for us, being able to talk to our participants when they hit a milestone to encourage them to go to the next one. There's push notifications. Everything that you need is there. And the thing is no one reads their emails anymore. Everybody's on their phone. And so this is an opportunity for you to get to the 21st century and be talking to participants and donors the way they want to be talked to. Easy.
And what they're used to every single day.
Yes.
It's not only where we're not only meeting them where they are, it's really what they are doing every single day.
Right.
We can't really take them out of that atmosphere and ask them to join us in a different scenario, right? So
we definitely are having the results of folks raising more money. I personally shot the text out, and I raised $500 in literally 5 minutes. Like, it's so super easy and it works. And I think that being able to really help folks understand the ease of it. For example, we have a high percentage of team captains that are managing their whole team through the app. So they're not sending emails, they're sending text messages, they're sending messaging to their team and to folks to join the team and to donate as well. So it's just, there's so many great aspects to it. And I know that those people who decide to do this will have great success with it for sure.
So your event's coming up. Isn't your campaign coming up soon?
We're in it right now.
You're in it right now.
Woohoo, yes.
So tell us about it. Let's talk about it.
So our number one market is Philadelphia, and that event was last weekend.
Okay.
Just really excited about how
Is it
many
a walk
people.
run, right?
It's a walk run, yes.
Walk run, okay.
Mostly walks. We have a couple of
What's
runs.
the brand? What's the name of it?
It's called Together in Teal.
Together in Teal.
Yes.
Okay.
And ovarian cancer, teal is our color.
Yes,
September is
definitely.
our awareness
Okay.
month. And so it was a great success. And our fundraising doesn't close till the end of the year. So people
Okay.
will still keep using that. And as I said, with the incentives and the rewards, we're able to really keep connection with them and grow them to the next level. So I think it's going to be very, very successful for sure.
Oh, we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Oh, this is really exciting.
Yes.
So what is the process? Do we meet One Cause first? Do we meet Kathy at Nucleus first? Does it matter? And what is the process for getting this app created and all of the fundraising tools populated? What does that look like?
Well, the Nucleus integration is available to all One Cause peer-to-peer customers. Okay, so it doesn't matter. You don't have to be a certain size. You don't have to be a certain type. So we talk about peer-to-peer fundraisers. You asked what kind of event is it or what kind of campaign is it? Run, walk, ride, cycle events, right? And
Peloton.
DIY
okay.
fundraising. So it really is just if you're a One Cause customer and you want a more custom experience for your participants, right? For your team captains, those that are out there and being your ambassadors, right? In fundraising, in awareness, they can leverage the Nucleus integration and an app. So how that would work, practically speaking, like day to day is if you're a One Cause customer and you say this is interesting, you could reach out to Kathy directly, you could reach out through One Cause and we will make the connection and vice versa. So it's very easy.
We're friendly.
And I'll let Kathy then talk about what she would do on her side.
Yeah.
I want to bring up one point really quick,
Please,
and that is
Suzanne.
the integration
We're
of all the
fascinated.
platforms. Because a lot of small, large nonprofits have several different platforms. You can use Endurance, DIY. So when they sign in, it doesn't matter what campaign they're involved in, they're in the app. So they can use multiple campaigns within the one app, which is huge.
Multiple.
Campaigns within the app.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm glad you brought that up because that's a really unique architectural decision that we made. So instead of having just an event-specific app Together in Teal,
Okay.
it actually can be a peer-to-peer platform app. So it really is kind of like your website, and you can navigate to all your different assets, whether it's walk, DIY, endurance, have different branding, different configuration, different features. Because as an organization, you don't want them to download 5 apps if they're a true champion participating in so many different
Yeah,
events.
I protect the real estate on my phone a little bit. And I
Absolutely.
I think about the app before
Yeah.
I'm starting to download. So I appreciate that.
And you could then use it as an opportunity to cross-promote other fundraising opportunities.
Okay.
So that's something that's really exciting. But I think to Emily's point, one of the things that we really are proud of is we wanted to make sure mobile was available to everybody, regardless of budgets. And so some organizations might have a larger budget. They might want a white labeled mobile app that's fully customized, available in the app stores, that's branded to the organization. But for some organizations, maybe they're just dipping their toes in peer-to-peer, growing those programs, and you do want to match your budget to do what you're raising. And so we have an app that they can just piggyback on called Social Do-Gooder. So they can actually do
Social do-gooder.
Yeah, so
Okay.
very affordably, just have it up and running in less than 2 weeks. And so you can use it as a way to still meet your participants where they are, but do it in a more cost-effective manner that really matches where you are and hopefully grow to have a white labeled app one day.
Okay, so
Can I ask just a follow-up? So if I wanted to do the white label version, like how long before my event would I need to get that started to be able to make sure that I could actually have it ready for that event?
Good question. I would say the sooner the better. I would say, for a lot of organizations, they are really setting up events almost a year before the actual event, right? Now, most of the fundraising is probably going to happen 30 to 90 days before. So at minimum, you'd want to hit that window. But if you can really get them already registering even at your event for next year's event, your chances of success are going to be greater because that runway for fundraising will be longer.
And then you touched on, you've used a few terms. And so just so that listeners kind of know what those mean. So what is a DIY? Like, what does that mean?
DIY. So do it yourself.
Yep.
Sometimes also, it used to be called independent fundraising events. So IFEs, we love acronyms. We love acronyms. But DIY is one of the really up and coming event types where there's no physical event and it's you fundraise on your terms, whether you're doing a bake sale, whether you are running in your neighborhood, whether you're just getting together with friends doing a bake sale. And it's just a way of supporting an organization in however you find most beneficial.
Gotcha. And so then an endurance event is going to be something where there's the walk or the run, that sort of thing.
Correct.
Gotcha. Just wanted to make sure our listeners understood kind of the differences of what types of campaigns can be done.
I think it toes in
Yeah.
to peer-to-peer, so
And
it's good that we defined it.
One Cause has, the activities, which is a great segue where people have signed up to fundraise, but then they can create their own activity within that, whether it's wine tasting or whatever they want to do. Some people have cycling events on their own and raise money through that. That is huge because it's within the platform, and then you've got the app that's tracking it, and you can talk to all your folks. It's pretty neat.
So now I understand why it's next level, because really we're meeting that donor where they are every single day, the way they want to operate.
With whatever they want to do.
Whatever they want to do.
Yes,
It's like the
yes.
trifecta.
Yeah.
I want to turn it back to Nucleavis and Kathy to close out here. What's next for Nucleavis? You're such a visionary. You've done so much in the peer-to-peer and fundraising space. Can you share anything with us about what's to come and what we could expect as fundraisers from Nucleavis?
We actually just held a product think tank with our customers.
Matt loves hearing about product
And,
think tanks.
it was one of those things where we really brought all of these different thought leaders to the table to help us brainstorm what is 2025 going to hold and what's going to move the needle. A couple of things that, we've talked about is one, making the app available even if you're not registered for an event. So think about it as an organizational member app that could then use AI to tell you what events you should be registered for based on the activity and non-activity that you've done. So I think that's going to be the next phase of how do you integrate AI with all the data that we already have.
Well, we're hearing it again. Bring AI to the table and let it have its seat in everything else that we're doing. But thank you, Kathy, for bringing this amazing mobile experience that donors want to the amazing One Cause fundraising platform and making magic happen. I like to call it mobile magic. And Suzanne, thank you for just letting us feel firsthand how this can really work.
It can really impact organizations. I've been in this business for about 30 years, and this is the first time that I've really felt like I've taken on something. And even though there's work to it, of course, it's going to actually have a really great ROI. But not only that, it's going to be great for our community.
And your donors, I think, are going to really feel that connection with the organization
Absolutely.
to sustain that
Yeah.
fundraising that you need.
And I do want to say Kathy's team from a customer service perspective is amazing. And, that's part of it. You get to these vendors and they sign you up and then you don't hear from them, right? So
it doesn't happen with Nucleavis or One Cause.
Yeah, no.
I promise.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. That's actually true. But I do think it's important that if you decide to come on, they stick with what they say they're going to do. And I think that's great because a lot of people need help. They're small to large organizations. So,
well, go Teal. Have a great
Go Teal.
September.
Thank you.
And I have
should
a
have worn
question.
teal today. I feel bad. I'm in red.
There's always tomorrow. September's got 30 days. We're all good. I have to ask, can I invite both of you back after the campaign to flesh it all out
I would
and
love it.
explore the data and see how we
would
did?
love to.
Well, To be continued. So, Raise community, we hope you love a little taste of what mobile experiences can do for peer-to-peer. We're going to check back with Suzanne and Kathy in a couple of months, and we're going to bring you all the good data. So stay with us. Enjoy your Raise experience.
Joy Goon, Utopia Experience. I actually am excited to be able to pull you from behind the camera to in front of the camera because you are here with your company producing all of the podcast content here at Raise Nation Studio. But you do a lot more than just live stream content and podcast content. You do live events. So let's dive into like guest experience and what creates a great event and create guest experience, especially from the production expertise that you bring to the table.
For sure. Yeah. So I think about opportunities like this where, you know, before we hit record, we talked about the importance of actually just being able to, like, we're all moving from session to session and there's so much wonderful content, but how much time do we actually take to sit down and create connection and create community where you leave with those lasting relationships? And when you're at another conference, maybe in a couple of months, you're like, oh my gosh, Samantha and Kristen, we had this amazing conversation, and you can revert and refer back to it. And so this is just one of the things that you could consider bringing to an event, maybe not a gala, but a conference like this where you can actually sit down and have real authentic conversations with other attendees and build those more meaningful connections and use technology to do it. Because now the really amazing part about this is all of us, we're going to get tens of, tens, 15, 20 pieces of short form content from this session right here that we can all cross promote and promote Raise and promote our own businesses to, talk about all the incredible work that we're all doing and how we can serve and add value.
Well, what's interesting too is thinking about, I think, I'm kind of a Luddite myself. And so technology, if I'm going to integrate it, it's got to be worth it.
Yeah.
Right. And what's interesting about this conceptually for me is that as an introvert, this gives me an avenue to have a conversation with you about things that doesn't feel awkward in many ways. I mean, having this big microphone in front of me might feel awkward, but there's structure to it, right? Yeah. And so when we build forums at events and gather people into those forums, when people know what they're doing and know how the things are operating, it actually frees us up in a lot of ways to have those authentic connections versus I'm lost. I don't know what's happening. What is that? And being sort of off kilter, it pulls us into ourself and doesn't allow me to be in space with you. And so can you talk about sort of in production and technology and conferences like that, how you look at that? How do you close the gap between people?
I think it's just making the experience and the technology more approachable to where, like you spoke to, technology is like this thing that can be exceptionally like cumbersome and hard to understand. Right. And if there were a bunch of people behind the cameras that looked stressed out and anxious, to your point, it wouldn't create the space for us to sit down and have psychological safety and feel like we're seen and heard and we're supported, and we can just sit down and not worry about any of the stuff going on around us. We can just connect to each other.
Right. Well, I think psychological safety is an important factor that you and I have talked about before in events, that in order for people to feel like they got something really successful out of the event, that they have to feel like there's an easy way to participate. Yep. And a lot of that has to do with how you welcome people, how they come into the event. Is the content relevant to them? Is it easy to participate? And I think one of the things, my favorite thing about the fact that technology has become an accessible way to bring people in is that we actually have a lot of training in the world of when the lights come down in the theater, we pay attention, right? When the lights go up, we know, oh, we're on, now it's our time to do something. That there's a lot of actually like psychological cues that are created by the work that you all are doing behind the scenes in helping people to understand where to go, what to do next in the production side of things. I feel like it's so often production is behind the scenes, and yet it is truly where all of the impact and magic is happening.
Yeah, and I think about I didn't really understand. So first off, I love that y'all really connect and resonate with, like, I know we talked a bit about neuroscience. We had you on our LinkedIn Live last week or 2 weeks ago, and we spent a bit of time talking about neuroscience and psychological safety. And when I went to an event a number of years ago, it was 7 or 8 years ago, called the Front Row Foundation event. It's a wish granting organization. And I may have shared this story on the LinkedIn Live, but just to reiterate for those that weren't a part of that conversation, I was an attendee at this event with 100 other donors who were strangers before we walked in the doors. And they played this really impactful video of this little girl named Hannah. She was 7, 8 years old, and all she knew were the inside 4 walls of the hospital because she had to go for her treatments, her 2-hour infusions every single day. And that's like, it's an unimaginable, unthinkable thing to be happening to anybody, let alone a 7 to 8 year old little girl. So they played this video, they went into the fundraiser. And of course, the cool thing about this, it was a personal development event where there were a bunch of like business moguls. And so their live auction was, you get to spend more time with the founder of Priceline. He's going to teach you how to grow your business. And so I wanted to make Hannah's wish come true, but I also wanted to spend more time with him and didn't know how I was going to pay for it. But I'm like, this is a once in a lifetime up. Yes. And so after that, they pulled out blank collateral and they passed out collateral to everybody. They said, hey, you know, Hannah's family could really use some hope right now. Hannah's family could really use some love from strangers, people that they don't even know, just who like, you don't know these people now, but like, you've just watched their story, and gosh, does that resonate with you? Like, everybody's feeling it in your hearts. Maybe you feel of the head or the heart and you feel called to just offer them words of inspiration, offer them words of love and encouragement, let them know how much hope you're offering, you know, could give to them right now. These people who were strangers 5 minutes ago are now a part of all of our journeys. And so we wrote them letters and they sent those off to Hannah and her family. And then 2 months later, they closed the impact loop by sending us a video of Hannah and her family reading our letters.
Perfect.
And after we wrote those letters, like, the community was just supercharged. We were all like, we just felt like we had did something in which we received way more than we gave.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to understand what was happening in that environment neurologically in our brains, where this community all came together to do something meaningful for another human.
Yeah.
And then the community was enlivened by it and supercharged. Like, we could have done anything together because we were so inspired. And that to me was like, how do we take this level of psychological safety and what they accomplished and bring it into our industry of technology and audiovisual production? And so enter the broadcast studio or you know, some of the other things that we're doing to try and create that same element of relatability with other human beings and connection, and do it in a way where, you know, we can use the stuff that we understand with technology to bring that same level of connection and community.
Well, no, I was just going to say,
You sparked inspiration here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always interested when we're using whatever the thing is, technology in this case, to close distance.
Yes.
I think
that's a great way to frame
it gets weaponized or creates different distance or leaves people behind because they don't know X, Y, or Z. So anytime we can use those things to close distance between people, that's what happened for you in that room, right? This room of strangers, all of a sudden the distance between you eclipsed. Right? You were all synced up. There's a study about that out of the University of London, and that you were shared a story and literally your heartbeats all synced up. Yeah. And so you were connected in a totally different way. And the power of video storytelling, I think, around the technology piece around video storytelling is one of its most potent pieces for change in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I was going to actually mention the London study, which is what I think you sparked for me, is that idea of there is so much power that can come out of when we are in a group creating a sense of belonging. Yeah. And that sense of belonging is something that you see movements build out of. You see entire global changes can occur when there's a sense of belonging to something. I mean, I like to use the Swiftie example because we're here in Nashville, right? I like to use that example of just like the Eras Tour is a great example of all of these young girls that have just, or not even all these old ladies, myself included, who have these this sense of belonging in this environment. And that is so much tied to people feeling safe, people feeling connected, people's, heartbeats being synced up. Yep. And I think that there are so many like layers of invisible connection that can be created when we allow people in using technology. And sometimes you don't even have to be in the room to be able to feel that sense of connection and belonging and feel like you're a part of something.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know more about Raise Nation Radio and your work with Raise Nation Radio, because you're here behind the scenes running everything.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about why you get involved with Raise and what you love about Raise.
We love helping those that help the world. I know it sounds like cliche and silly, but like I come from a corporate background, and for a long time I was doing something in which I didn't feel truly enlivened me, and like I didn't want to jump out of bed in the morning. Now I do.
Yeah.
Because we get to come and serve those that are like change agents. They're the people that are getting up every day and making an impact. And the fact that we get to be a small part of that journey is tremendously empowering. And you can talk to any of our staff who I know y'all have interacted with, and just being a part of these sessions. I mean, everybody is just supercharged with energy because of the people that we get to serve.
Before we sign off, I want to ask you just to share with folks where you're at and where, like, the work you do, what sort of, if folks want to reach out to you.
Yes.
What sort of work service area are you in?
So geographically, we, it wasn't always this way pre-COVID, but now we are producing events as far west as San Diego and as far east as Boston, and kind of everywhere in between. It's really exciting. And so, I mean, I would say challenge us, no different than like we had a conversation not long ago about doing some like programming elements with audiovisual stuff. Bring us a challenge, bring us like, hey, we want to do something new for our donor base, or, we're struggling with technology. We're not really sure, like, can we use technology as a means to raise more money? You absolutely can. Bring us these challenges and let us impress you. Let us wow you with the things that our team can come back with. And if we win you over in that capacity, then perhaps we work together.
There is an exciting session going on upstairs. It's amazing. I can hear all kinds of exciting noise going on. It sounds like a good party up there.
There's connection happening.
There is connection happening.
Well, and I think what you tap on there is what I hope nonprofits continue to take away, is that they're really good at their mission. They're really good at their donors. They're really good at what they do. When they come into places where they're like, I have no idea how to do that, bring partners in, bring good partners in who know how to do those things, so that you can go back to doing the thing that you do really well. And so I think demystifying technology, you don't have to know it all.
Yeah.
You don't have to know, how do we do, what does that look like, what can that be? But bringing in a thought partner who's willing to dream with you about like what it could look like, could be that something comes out of that and the solution to the whole thing is something that neither of you had thought about before. And that's the great thing about great partners. So thanks for doing that.
Absolutely. Thank you both.
Thank you. Well, on the fundraising elevator, we ask everyone, what one tip or piece of advice would you give to fearless fundraisers to help them head up?
Ooh, I wasn't ready for this. I just had this conversation with a dear friend, Jeff, upstairs. And, I say dear, it's like we were like kindred spirits, like reconnecting. We haven't seen each other in a very, very long time. And it was like anyway, what came of that conversation was we were talking about the woes and the highs of running businesses, and how you have to remind yourself every day. And this applies to anyone. If you're in fundraising, if you're running a business, if you have ever gotten just knocked down and defeated in your life, I had this conversation with him about how I try to apply this analogy of playing at Nintendo 64 when I was a kid, and reminding myself every day that I'm not always going to hit the right buttons on the controller to beat the boss and advance to the next level. But if I can just come back to the fact that I'm simply playing a game and have fun, and that the journey is the destination. And if you can just remember that, like speaking from my own personal experience, when I get too stressed out or too anxious or too serious about a problem or a challenge that I'm trying to overcome, I just remind myself that running a business, fundraising, life, it's all a game. And just have fun and enjoy the journey.
I love that. What a great note. Thank you so much. Thank you for stopping by Raise Nation Studio and joining the other side of the camera.
I'm going to go back to the other side of the camera and let you all continue doing your thing. You all are awesome.
Thanks.
Wonderful host. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Fearless Fundraisers, that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for joining and listening in. I want to thank my fantastic co-host, Matt Vitsagai, as well as all of the podcasters, Taylor Shanklin, Kristen Steele, Samantha Swaim, and Cindy Wagman. We couldn't do it without you, and we also couldn't do it without all of our amazing guests who shared their inspiration with all of you today.
Absolutely, Dawn. And also a special thank you to our friends from Utopia for their behind-the-scenes support and production. Make sure to tune in for all of the Raise 2024 episodes so you don't miss out on any of this amazing content.
Yeah, we don't want to miss a single episode. That is a wrap. Thanks for joining us for this amazing Raise experience.
I'm Matt Vitsagai.
I'm Dawn Lego.
Stay fearless.